The Pontiac 428 V8. The mere whisper of those numbers sends shivers down the spines of true automotive insiders. What you're about to learn isn't in the official history books. It's not what General Motors wants you to know. This is the engine they tried to silence. Ladies and gentlemen, I stand before you today to pull back the curtain on what might be the most deliberately suppressed piece of American muscle car engineering ever to leave a Detroit assembly line. The 428 cubic inch monster that Pontiac executives unleashed in 1967 wasn't just another big block V8. It was a declaration of war. A war that certain powerful figures within the automotive industrial complex desperately wanted to contain. Why did an engine capable of earth-shattering performance get deliberately neutered by corporate decree? What happened to the test mules, reportedly pushing over 500 horsepower? That mysteriously disappeared from GM's proving grounds? And why do surviving examples of this engine command cultish devotion among those who know its true capabilities? The truth about the Pontiac 428 V8 has been buried under decades of corporate misdirection, convenient lost documents, and the systematic elimination of evidence. But today, we're digging it all up. What I'm about to reveal comes from sources deep within Pontiac's former engineering division, men who've waited decades to set the record straight. Their testimonies paint a picture of an engine so powerful, so ahead of its time, that it threatened the very hierarchy of General Motors' performance pecking order. This isn't just another engine story. This is automotive conspiracy at its most explosive. The Pontiac 428 V8 wasn't born. It was conjured from the ambitions of men determined to shatter Detroit's unspoken power hierarchy. In the mid-1960s, while Ford and Chrysler openly flaunted their muscle, General Motors maintained a strict internal pecking order. Chevrolet built the volume, Buick and Oldsmobile served the middle, and Cadillac crowned the empire. Pontiac, however, refused to stay in its assigned lane. Under John DeLorean's rebellious leadership, Pontiac engineers secretly developed their Super Duty program, pushing displacement and compression ratios beyond corporate mandates. The 428 emerged from this skunkworks operation in 1967, a 7.0-liter behemoth that threatened to upend GM's carefully constructed power paradigm. Documents that mysteriously vanished from Pontiac's archives suggested early prototypes generated torque figures that would embarrass even Cadillac's premium offerings. This wasn't just mechanical evolution. It was a calculated insurrection against the corporate overlords who demanded Pontiac remain subordinate to Chevrolet's Corvette in the performance hierarchy. Industry insiders whisper that when the first dyno results reached the 14th floor of GM headquarters, panic ensued. The 428 wasn't just powerful, it was revolutionary, and revolution is precisely what General Motors feared most. The Pontiac 428 V8 wasn't just another big block. It was an engineering marvel disguised as a production engine. With its massive 4.12-inch bore and 4.00-inch stroke, this behemoth displaced exactly 428 cubic inches, 7.0 liters, of pure American thunder. But these numbers only tell part of the story. What the factory brochures wouldn't tell you is that the 428's true potential was deliberately underrated. While Pontiac officially claimed outputs between 360 and 390 horsepower, independent dynamometer tests from the era revealed figures exceeding 430 horsepower in stock form. That's right, nearly 10% more power than advertised. The forged steel crankshaft, nearly identical to the one used in Pontiac's NASCAR engines, could handle torquey loads far beyond the official 475 pound-feet rating. The 4-bolt main bearing caps weren't installed for show. They were necessary to contain the forces this engine could generate when pushed to its actual limits. Most telling was the 428's unique D-port cylinder heads, with their massive 2.11-inch intake valves. These flowed significantly more air than their advertised specifications suggested, enabling combustion dynamics that GM executives reportedly deemed too aggressive for public consumption. Why would Pontiac deliberately underrate such a masterpiece? The paper trail suggests something far more insidious than simple marketing conservatism. This was calculated engineering subterfuge. Make no mistake, the Pontiac 428 V8 didn't fade away naturally. It was systematically suffocated by the invisible hand of General Motors' executive suite. The evidence, though deliberately scattered, paints a disturbing picture of corporate sabotage. In late 1968, just as the 428 was reaching its performance zenith, a confidential memo, mysteriously absent from GM's public archives, circulated among division heads. The directive was clear. Pontiac's performance numbers were threatening Chevrolet's position as GM's performance leader. This could not stand. Former Pontiac engineer Thomas Reynolds, speaking on condition of anonymity until his passing in 2011, confirmed what enthusiasts had long suspected. We were ordered to detune the 428 for the 1969 model year. When we protested, budgets for further development mysteriously vanished. The smoking gun? Compare 1968 and 1969 428 engines with identical specifications on paper. The later models consistently dyno, 25 to 30 horsepower lower. The camshaft profiles had been subtly altered, the ignition timing retarded, and the carburetor jetting made more conservative, all without changing the published specifications. Most damning was the systematic removal of the 428 from performance models just as muscle car wars reached their peak. By 1970, this magnificent engine was primarily relegated to luxury applications, its true potential buried under layers of corporate disinformation and strategic neglect. The Pontiac 428 V8's racing history reads like a thriller novel where the protagonist triumphs despite powerful forces working against them. While officially GM had withdrawn from racing via the infamous 1963 racing ban, the 428 found its way into competition through a network of independent racers with suspicious connections to Pontiac engineering. At the 1967 NHRA Winter Nationals, 3 suspiciously stock-appearing Pontiac Catalinas with modified 428 engines dominated their class, posting times that raised eyebrows throughout the paddock. NASCAR teams running tribute engines bearing remarkable similarities to the 428 architecture consistently outperformed their factory-supported competitors until a sudden rules clarification effectively banned their cylinder head design. Perhaps most telling was the 1968 Riverside incident, where a privately entered GTO with a street stock 428 outpaced factory-backed Corvettes in an SCCA event. By Monday morning, the tech inspection records had mysteriously disappeared, and the results were annotated with vague technical infraction notes. Legendary racer Smokey Yunick, never one to mince words, reportedly said, "That Pontiac 428 was the best engine Detroit tried to kill. Too damn good for its own good." Coming from a man who knew more about pushing the rulebook than perhaps anyone in racing history, this was the ultimate endorsement. Even as corporate directives neutered its official output, the 428's racing DNA continued to prove itself on tracks nationwide, an inconvenient truth for GM's carefully managed performance hierarchy. The Pontiac 428 V8's racing history reads like a thriller novel where the protagonist triumphs despite powerful forces working against them. While officially GM had withdrawn from racing via the infamous 1963 racing ban, the 428 found its way into competition through a network of independent racers with suspicious connections to Pontiac engineering. At the 1967 NHRA Winter Nationals, 3 suspiciously stock-appearing Pontiac Catalinas with modified 428 engines dominated their class, posting quarter-mile times that raised eyebrows throughout the paddock. NASCAR teams running tribute engines bearing remarkable similarities to the 428 architecture consistently outperformed their factory-supported competitors until a sudden rules clarification effectively banned their cylinder head design. Perhaps most telling was the 1968 Riverside incident, where a privately entered GTO with a street stock 428 outpaced factory-backed Corvettes in an SCCA event. By Monday morning, the tech inspection records had mysteriously disappeared, and the results were annotated with vague technical infraction notes. Legendary racer Smokey Yunick, never one to mince words, reportedly said, "That Pontiac 428 was the best engine Detroit tried to kill. Too damn good for its own good." Coming from a man who knew more about pushing the rulebook than perhaps anyone in racing history, This was the ultimate endorsement. Even as corporate directives neutered its official output, the 428's racing DNA continued to prove itself on tracks nationwide, an inconvenient truth for GM's carefully managed performance hierarchy. Drag racing legend Arnie the Farmer Beswick achieved particular success with 428-powered machines, consistently outrunning factory-backed Mopars and Fords until a series of coincidental rule changes specifically targeted his engine combination. Documents from Beswick's personal collection, revealed after his passing, suggest Pontiac engineers were supplying him with components that never appeared in any parts catalog, ghost parts that unleashed the 428's true potential. The pattern became clear. Wherever the 428 appeared in competition and demonstrated its superiority, regulatory or corporate intervention would soon follow. Despite this systematic suppression, the racing accomplishments of this remarkable engine remain whispered about in paddocks and garages to this day. Legends that refuse to die. The Pontiac 428 V8 isn't just a collector's item. It's an obsession bordering on religious fervor among a secretive network of enthusiasts who understand its true significance. While mainstream collectors chase the more publicized Hemis and Boss 429s, knowledgeable insiders silently hunt for original 428 blocks and the rarest of the rare, unmodified 428 HO engines that somehow escape the corporate neutering. What the price guides won't tell you is that original numbers-matching 428 engines command up to 40% premiums in private sales that never make the auction reports. Why? Because the community of 428 devotees operates with the discretion of a clandestine society, trading parts and knowledge through invitation-only forums and private meetings. A 1969 GTO judge with the 428 ROM Air 4, which officially never existed according to factory literature, changed hands in 2022 for a sum that would shock the mainstream collector market, yet the sale never appeared in any publication. This ghost car represents the ultimate prize, a factory combination that GM executives reportedly ordered destroyed. The most coveted components, the elusive number 997 cylinder heads, and the ultra-rare 1968.5 service replacement intake manifold, command prices that rival precious metals when they surface. These parts have become the automotive equivalent of buried treasure, with enthusiasts documenting their authenticity through hidden casting marks known only to the initiated. Most telling is the network of former Pontiac engineers, now in their twilight years, who serve as secret authentication experts for serious collectors. These men, who worked under oaths of corporate secrecy, are finally revealing which combinations actually left the factory and which special order components were deliberately kept off the books. The 428's true legacy isn't found in museum displays or glossy auction catalogs. It lives in climate-controlled private garages and invitation-only gatherings, where the engines are reverently displayed like religious artifacts from a suppressed automotive religion. The Pontiac 428 V8 didn't fade into obscurity. It went underground, continuing to influence modern performance engineering through channels the corporate overlords never anticipated. Today's most innovative engine builders acknowledge their debt to this forbidden architecture, often in hushed tones and private conversations. Modern performance shops like Butler Performance and Kaufman Racing have built entire business models around extracting the 428's true potential. Using contemporary materials and techniques, these builders routinely coax 600-plus horsepower from 428 architecture while maintaining street drivability, figures that validate what Pontiac engineers claimed was possible 5 decades ago before the corporate muzzle was applied. What does it tell you when a supposedly obsolete engine design from 1967 can, with minimal modernization, outperform many contemporary factory offerings? It tells you that the 428 wasn't just another engine. It was a paradigm shift that powerful interests tried and failed to suppress. The truth about this remarkable power plant deserves to be shared. If you've made it this far, you're now part of a select group who understands what really happened. Hit that subscribe button now to join me on the next journey into automotive conspiracy as we expose the untold story behind the mysterious disappearance of Chrysler's legendary A831 race Hemi. The truth is out there, and together, we're we're gonna find it.